Let's talk to Gabriel Cohen, who's a doctoral fellow at the Barcelona Institute of International Studies. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show. Now, it does seem that there are low expectations from this summit, but everyone's in the room. So how important is that?
That is essential and absolutely critical because we have seen the last few years within both the Mercosur bloc, but also with the relationship between the Mercosur bloc and the European Union, a breakdown of communication, largely spurred by former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. And with the return of former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who took office on January 1st, the hope within both the Mercosur bloc and its partner countries, as well as within the European Union, was that there'd be a return and a resurgence of communication, essentially. Now, we have seen that, and this summit serves a bit of a getting the team together to hash out the counterproposal that the Mercosur countries would like to send back towards the Europeans following the attachment of what they called an additional instrument or side letter that was just mentioned in March. And this side letter is all about environmental concerns, and this summit is very much the Mercosur countries, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, trying to come together and form a joint response and a joint counterproposal to the Europeans.
OK, so if the politics have changed, we still have to consider that these negotiations have been going on for decades. Of course, in that time, the world has changed, and there is a much keener focus and commitment towards climate action. So what is the hold-up, then, on doing a deal?
The primary hold-up today is primarily on the European side. There has been this renewed push led by largely the Green parties of the European Parliament and across Europe and its member states to essentially halt this deal until it is more stringent on climate concerns. You have to remember that in 2019, what led to the breakdown post-negotiations, the breakdown of communication between Mercosur and the EU, was primarily a diplomatic spat between France and Brazil on the issue of deforestation. Now, today, there are at minimum 3 and at most about a half a dozen EU member states who have said they cannot sign the deal as it currently stands. This includes France. It also includes Ireland and Austria. These are countries that have said that as the deal stands, it is an invitation for further deforestation, and they would like to see, and this is what we saw in March with the side letter, they would like to see a mechanism put in place that would punish and discourage and disincentivize any behavior that furthers deforestation or furthers environmental catastrophe in the Amazon. And this has been met with a lot of resistance from the Mercosur side, particularly Brazil. As Lula da Silva puts it, you cannot have a trade deal in which there is a sanctions and distrust from the beginning. You'd like to see it much more cooperative. So
you've got those the environmental background, but Mercosur members are largely agricultural and developing economies. So how reciprocal would any trade deal be anyway?
There is an element of reciprocity, no doubt. It is worth noting there's about a 13% gap on the different amount of tariffs that will be slashed on agricultural imports, between about 82% and 95% on either side. It's also worth noting the type of goods, as you mentioned. The Mercosur countries are largely producers and exporters of soy and bovine meat and energy resources, in contrast to much more value-added and manufactured goods coming from Europe. This includes naturally German cars, as well as Dutch and French industrial output. Now, this is somewhat at the crux of the issue, is that the Mercosur countries would like to perhaps move along further on supply chains and move into more higher value-added exports. But this deal does not necessarily incentivize that. It primarily just opens the doors for further exporting of the commodities that have led to Latin America, and these countries in particular, rising and falling over the past 2 decades.
Gabriel Cohen in Barcelona, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.